Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for our How to Raise Money to Keep Your Community Active webinar. My name's Zoe and I'm part of the team at Crowdfunder. Today, I'm going to be joined by our wonderful partners at Sport England. So we have Becky joining us to talk about the Movement Fund, and we're also going to hear from one of our successful project owners about their experience, both accessing the Movement Fund and also crowdfunding. Before we dive into the content for today's session, you will have seen that I've put a few messages into the chat box. Do please use that chat box to introduce yourselves, let us know whereabouts you're joining us from, maybe a little bit about your organisation, your fundraising needs, or maybe your project ideas. Also use that chat box to interact with us. Please do ask questions throughout the session. We'll do our best to answer as many of those as we can as part of our Q&A at the end. Okay, a few housekeeping points before we get started then. We have allowed 60 minutes for this session, and as mentioned, it does include that Q&A at the end. There is also a Q&A box as part of your toolbar. Okay, so you can either put some questions into the chat box, alternatively, you can pop them into the Q&A. All of them will come through to us. We also have the wonderful Lucy from Sport England, who's actually sitting in that chat box, ready and waiting to answer any of your questions as well. So you've got lots of people on hand to make sure you've got all of the information that you need. This is a completely live session. We will be recording this session and we'll send it out to you as part of a follow-up email. We will make sure that we include any links to resources that we discuss throughout the session. So you'll have everything that you need at your fingertips to be able to take the next steps with your fundraising. If you find that you have any issues with your internet connection, the best thing to do is to leave the webinar and then follow that join up or the registration link, the joining link, to come straight back into the live room. You may well find that you've lost access to the previous messages in the chat box, so please just pop a message in for us and we can make sure that we get you back up to speed. Now, if you find that my video is sat on top of one of the slides and you can't see the full content, then please just make sure that you use the view option at the top right. And what that will do is that will make sure that that removes any of our videos away from the slides, and we'll just sit next to that one for you. So you should be able to see all of the content. Okay, without further ado, let's get started. So why would you be thinking about crowdfunding? Something that's really important at the moment, and I think all of you on the call would agree with me, is that the need to stay financially resilient and develop some financial stability, as more often than not a not-for-profit or a charity-based organisation, is really important at the moment. We all know that the grant giving space is highly competitive, and it can be difficult to fundraise. It can be difficult to be approved for traditional grants. And it's a really great thing to consider when looking to diversify your income streams. Having a diverse or diversifying your income streams can be really important for these following reasons. It can help to reduce your financial risk. So making sure that you're not putting all of your eggs in one basket, for example, and you've got money coming in from different areas, can be really important to make sure you're increasing that financial stability of your organisation as well, which can then lead to and enhance that long-term financial stability. If you're maybe traditionally you've been reliant on a particular funding stream or a particular grant that you apply for each year, what happens if that grant no longer exists? If that pot of money kind of is no longer available for you to apply for, where do you look? Where do you go to? So having lots of different areas in which you can bring in funding for your organisation is really important at the moment within our kind of economic climate and the funding space. Can help you to unlock new opportunities as well. You can look at different ways to use the platform. You might be able to unlock match funding that you hadn't been aware of. You might be able to work with different partners that we represent as well. Can also help to strengthen your donor engagement. So everything that we're encouraging you to do with crowdfunding is very much supporter focused. It's about engaging with your community at large, and that can really help to not only bring in money from your supporters, but actually build upon those relationships as well. And that could be local businesses, that could be local members of the community that you haven't yet kind of reached out to when you've been doing your fundraising. It can help to expand your reach and your influence. So it can help to build awareness around what you're doing. And it can also help you to connect with other areas of funding, whether that be with your local authority, whether that be different pots of money through match funding or grants. It can also be a great way to just connect with individuals within your community that may be able to offer some support in terms of financial support or building awareness of your club, business support, those types of things. And one thing that is exciting and engaging is it's a great way to think about new revenue channels. It can help you to be innovative when it comes to raising money. It can help you to be thinking about how do we keep on building upon these relationships? Do we start running prize draws, for example? Do we do some big fundraising challenges throughout the year? All of these things can be facilitated on the Crowdfunder platform. So it's not just about that one-time only campaign. It's about trying to think about integrating this into your fundraising strategy as a whole and how it can become one of many of your fundraising streams, so your income streams. So why Crowdfunder UK? We are the UK's leading rewards-based crowdfunding platform. We'll look a little bit more in more detail about rewards, but in their kind of simplest form, a reward is a benefit of some kind in return for a financial contribution. We're not asking you to give up any shares or equity in your club or your organisation. What we are tasking you to do is think about things that would connect with your community, whether that's your existing members, so things like a discounted membership or match day tickets at a discounted price, or whether it's your community as a whole. So it could be discounts on local services, local shops, going out, for dinner. Could it be a meal for two voucher at the local high street restaurant? There are so many different things that you can add as a reward. And they play a really key part in you connecting with your audience. So you're giving something back to them as a thank you for their contribution. And it's a lovely way to also shout about your community, your business community, those that have supported you by gifting you a reward. So it can be mutually beneficial lots of different ways. So we'll look at that in more detail a little bit later on. So just to break it right down, how does crowdfunding work? Essentially, you would sign up for a free-to-access account on crowdfunder.co.uk. You'd be prompted to create a unique campaign page. And with that page, you're going to use it as an opportunity to really tell your story, explain to your supporters who you are, some information about your organisation, and of course, your project idea. You want to make sure that you keep that as person-centric as possible. Think about the fact that you're going to be creating this page in such a way that it's you having a conversation with a friend of yours that you've not seen in a while. Try and keep it conversational, keep the narrative engaging with your audience as well. You'll also be prompted to set a target. So that's how much you need to raise in order to get this project off the ground and happening, and how long you would like to run your project for. You can then go on to add rewards if that's something that suits you and your project, and you can apply for any extra funding that might be available to you. So we call it extra funding. Essentially, it's match funding. So we work with lots of partners across the UK that will potentially match fund your project, helping you to potentially double or triple the amount of money that you're raising. You can apply to more than one of our funding partners. So it can be a great opportunity to boost the amount of money that you're bringing in for your project. And then you'd go on to launch your campaign. So you'd set your campaign page live on our website, and then it would be up to you to spread the word. So you're going to share this page link with your audiences and your networks, and you're going to encourage people to come along and donate digitally to your crowdfunding campaign. Now, when you're thinking about raising money, of course, the most important thing is trying to bring that money in, getting the money into that bank account so you can deliver on what it is that you're trying to do. Now, one thing that you might not be considering is some of the additional benefits that come along from raising money in this way. So with crowdfunding, it can be a really low risk way of actually testing the water to see if what you're trying to raise money for lands well with your community and with your beneficiaries. As it's a free to access kind of platform until you've completed your successful campaign, in which there are some fees attached, and we can go over that. But it's a great way to put your message out there, drive some supporters to your campaign, get some comments of support, make sure that what you're doing is actually what your community and your members and your organization want to see happening. You will soon find out through the donations, through that feedback, as to whether it is something that they think would be of benefit. When you launch your campaign, and when you're spreading the word, it's going to really help to create a buzz around your idea. It's going to help build awareness around what you're doing. And in some instances, awareness around your organization and even the sport in which you practice or the physical activity in which you're delivering. We have seen so many different clubs and organizations come through the platform and say, we thought we were known in our community until we did this. And actually, we had lots of people coming out of the woodwork saying, I didn't even know you were just down the road, or I didn't realize you were a charity. I thought you had lots of money behind you as a limited organization that were able to just deliver these things. Or I didn't realize all of the other wonderful things that you do for the community impact that you create locally. So it's a great way to build awareness around everything that you do as an organization. And with that, it can help to build advocacy. So people that are donating to your campaign, and ourselves included at Crowdfunder, we work with projects day in and day out, and we then start talking about projects to our networks. People that are donating to your project will go on to talk about your organization, your brilliant project, and they will organically start to build your network for you. They'll talk to their friends and their family about this great project that they've donated on, that they've seen, how much it's going to benefit the community. And that can help to build a really engaged audience going forward. People that you can check back in with, that you can develop communications with. They might become part of a newsletter. They might then even turn into potential members or beneficiaries further down the line. Can help to build some really meaningful connections. You will, no doubt, learn some new skills. For some of you, this will be completely alien. Your fundraising up to this point may well have been grant applications. It may well have been very in-house in terms of running events and things at your club or at your organization. This will potentially push you out of your comfort zone, and we are well aware of that. So we do make sure that we've got lots of help and resources and support to have you crowdfunding as effectively as you possibly can and successfully as well. Do make use of those resources. They're there to help you. We are there to help you, and it can actually develop your skills that you can use then in different areas of your organization as well. And of course, that extra funding that I've mentioned. So we work with both national and regional partners, and eligible clubs or organizations and projects could well see themselves benefiting from additional funding towards their projects. So do keep an eye out for any funds that you could potentially be eligible for. Bear with me one second. Okay, so why does crowdfunding for sport or for physical activity work so well on our platform? And there are a few different reasons for that. Ultimately, you have the recipe for a really good crowdfunding campaign already. The fact that you work with members of your community, the fact that you might have members, so that those that are coming along, or the chances are, if you're not a membership club, you're an organization that already have beneficiaries. You've already got connections within your community. You've got a ready-made crowd. They are going to be the people that ultimately get you to your success, that get you to your target. Also, with this group of people, you're going to be able to potentially lean on them for a bit of support when it comes to actually creating the campaign and rolling the campaign out and making sure that you're driving donations to your crowdfunding page. You have a shared passion in the sport or the activity that you practice together. You will have a team, no doubt, of people around you, whether that's fellow volunteers, whether that's club members, whether that's parents. We know that parents can be super helpful in these campaigns. Lean on them. Make sure you've got people that can be your set of eyes and give feedback on the page, can help you to promote the campaign. You will be known in the community as well. And this is a chance for you to kind of cement your place in the community and become even more well known. The fact that you have that kind of presence within your community is going to be really beneficial. Use that. Make sure that you are posting things into the local town Facebook groups and all of those different networks that go on around you. You may well also have the capacity to run fundraising challenges yourselves, or some activity, especially if you have your own premises or own venue. Can you host a community day? Can you turn that into a fundraising day? Get the community to do this with you. You know, it should be collaborative wherever possible. No doubt you'll have some great networks as well, whether that's with your members and your beneficiaries that have businesses outside of kind of club activity. They might have side hustles that they could utilize to be able to donate some rewards. They might just be able to give their time in going out and resourcing these things for you. Reach out to your local business community as well, and make sure people are sharing on your behalf. So it's twofold when you're asking for kind of support from people in that way. Can you offer a reward? Can you share with your audience and your customers or your networks? Now, depending on the sports, depending on your organization, you may well have some alumni, you may well have celebrities that have come through the ranks or that are really influential within that physical activity. Reach out to them, see if they could potentially share on your behalf. They might even be able to offer a reward or a donation to your campaign. It's not kind of a golden ticket to a successful campaign, but it's definitely worth doing. It's worth just connecting with everybody that you can that can make this a success. And of course, that community impact as well, which is so pivotal and so vital for all of you organizations on the call today. You will be having a positive community impact. Highlight that in everything that you're doing. Highlight it on your page, highlight it in your promotion, make it as people-centered as possible, and really get that message across of how important what you do and who you are is for your community. Okay, just a few numbers for you to be aware of. So we've been around for coming up to 14 years, and we've been working with sports funding partners since the pandemic, really just before the pandemic, so 2020, roughly around about that time. So when we're thinking about sports organizations and that partnership, you know, it's in the grand scheme of crowdfunding, we've not been doing it for the whole time. So these are, I think, really impressive numbers for the time that we've been working with our partners. So we've been able to distribute over £11.3 million from our sports partners. So that includes Sport England. We also work with Sport Northern Ireland, Sport Wales, and we have worked with British Cycling as well in the past. We've seen more than 7,000 projects come through the platform, specifically with a sports focus or a physical activity focus. So that's their primary goal for their fundraising. They have been supported by more than 450,000 supporters. So that's individuals within their communities. And in total, those projects have managed to raise more than £39.5 million. And the majority of those organizations are really grassroots organizations. You know, they're small clubs, small organizations that are able to utilize this way of fundraising to make a real difference to their communities and to their projects. And to talk about one of our wonderful partnerships is Becky from Sport England, who's going to go into a bit more detail about the Movement Fund and the extra funding opportunity that we have with Crowdfunder and Sport England. Hi, Becky. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Zoe. Thank you for having me.
I will leave you to it. I'll pop on to the next slide. Just give me a little nod and I can move the slides for you, Becky, but I will turn my camera and mic off and get out of your way.
Thank you. Okay, that's great. Yeah. So Sport England is one of the extra funders on the Crowdfunder platform. We currently have the Movement Fund, which offers awards of up to 15,000, 50% of your total project target. The Movement Fund supports projects that will challenge inactivity, either by taking a group of inactive people and supporting them into regular activity, or preventing people from becoming inactive, or providing an opportunity for already active people to become active. If you are a not-for-profit organisation, so we fund sports clubs, community interest companies, charities, for example, then you can apply for up to 15,000 from us as long as your project challenges inactivity. We're really keen to invest in those communities that need it most and understand that access to sport and physical activity isn't always equal. So we do have priority groups. These are listed on the slide there, and it's also listed with more information on our website as well. So if your project, firstly, you can explain how it challenges inactivity, and it means that one of our priority groups will be supported into regular activity, then we're really, really keen to hear from you and make sure that you highlight this in your application. So for example, it might be that you are improving your changing facilities so that people living with disabilities can access the changing facilities. Or maybe your project is making sure that your activity is more accessible to girls aged 5 to 16 and would like to update your changing rooms or toilet facilities to make sure their needs are catered for and they feel included within the club provision. Then we're really keen to hear from you. What we really would like to know, so firstly, tell us about how your project challenges inactivity. Tell us whether your project means that one of our priority groups is going to be more active on a regular basis. And also make sure that you're able to explain to us what the need or the demand is for your project. So it might be that you have a waiting list, that you have collected expressions of interest, that you're working with a partner organisation that has good engagement with one of our priority groups, and you're able to explain and evidence the need from your project for your project. Can you change the slide, please? Thank you. There's two ways you can apply to the Movement Fund. You can either go on to our Sport England's website and complete our application for the portal, or if you have a view to crowdfund and you've already put together a crowdfunding campaign, you can also apply through the crowdfunding website. So you will, once you've set up your campaign, you'll be automatically matched with us as an extra funder. Complete your application, explaining what I've already said, so how your project challenges inactivity, highlight whether you're working with a priority group, and please let us know what the need is for your project. We will assess it as we would if you went through our website or if you went through Crowdfund website. Assessments take about 3 weeks, and we can let you know the decision. Then you're free to launch your campaign with our help and support. So if you are successful, you will be given a case officer, a Sport England case officer, which will be your point of contact, and it'll be their job to help you through the process. What I would say is, if successful, please talk to us, please use us. Any questions, we're here to help along with Crowdfunder and to make sure that your crowdfunder journey is a good one, and you can access all the additional benefits that are available as well as the funding.
Thank you, Becky. That is brilliant. And any questions specifically for, eligibility or projects, people can contact you directly, can't they? And we'll make sure that we share the contact details for Sport England. So if you are wondering if you may be eligible, that's a good place to start as well. Do reach out. I'm just going to put a quick poll into the room. So if you wouldn't mind just letting us know, those of you that have attended today, whether you have applied for the Movement Fund and which route you've applied for. or if you're yet to apply, that'd be really useful for us so we can kind of make sure that we're covering everything that we need to in today's session. Okay. Oh, wonderful. Okay, so bear with me 1 second. Launch that poll. Okay, so that's going on in the background. Right, so Becky mentioned that we have a couple of different routes for application. So if you are not already crowdfunding, you're intrigued about the fund, you want to kind of go to the Support England route, that's absolutely fine. You can go directly to Support England. You can put in an application, and at that point, they can determine whether you need to do a crowdfunding campaign or whether it may be a grant. However, if you're coming through Crowdfunder because you've realized that actually the additional benefits could be really useful for you, regardless of what happens, you're going to need to raise some money. So this could be a great way to diversify those income streams, like we've mentioned. You can come through Crowdfunder, you can start setting up your campaign, and our computer system will match you with any of our funders that we think your project could be eligible for. And one of those, no doubt, will be Sport England and the Movement Fund. You may well have been matched with some additional funders as well, maybe a local authority, maybe some of our national partners. And at that point, you can apply for any of those funds that are a good fit for your project. Make sure that you're looking at the eligibility criteria before you put in those applications. As Becky mentioned, with the Movement Fund, you need to be really clear on how you're hitting those funding priorities and that difference the money's going to make to getting people active in your communities. And then you can apply via your crowdfunding project dashboard. Generally, it takes around 15 minutes or so to complete an application. So it can be a really time efficient way to apply for some match funding. I would recommend that you do take a look at the questions beforehand. You might need to go off and speak to some other people and get a little bit of background information before you can complete that form, but you can do that. You can look at the questions, gather all of the information that you need. I suggest maybe creating a Word document or something similar with all of that information so you can copy and paste it over, especially if you're doing more than one of these applications. You might want to just replicate some of those answers within the different applications for the different funds. So that's always a good idea to have a bit of a backup in terms of a Word document with all of that info ready to hand. Okay, in terms of the actual fund itself, this is just a little overview of the mechanics. So essentially, what we're going to look at for this is you've set up your campaign, you've got a campaign in draft, you've applied for your extra funding with Sport England, so the Movement Fund, and you've had an approval. They've said, yes, we love what you're doing. We are ready to make a pledge on your campaign as soon as you hit these milestones. What you're going to do is you're going to start crowdfunding. You're going to spread the word to your networks. You're going to start quite small, quite close to you. You're going to speak to your friends, your family, members at the club, volunteers, everybody that's close to you and your project. And you're going to rally some donations. You need to look to raise 25% of your target. And let's not forget, that's what you have set for your project, okay? So that's the amount of money you need to get this thing happening. You need to raise 25% of that from at least 25 individual supporters. Once you have done that, you will see the pledge from Sport England land on your crowdfunding campaign page. All of a sudden, the amount that you've raised will leap up towards your target by that pledge amount. You will have a lovely message on your campaign page to say that Sport England are backing this project. What you do at that point is you start shouting about this to your networks, to your supporters, and you say, look, Sport England are behind us. We just need to raise X amount more to hit our target. So use it as motivation. Use it to build that momentum within your community to help you reach 100% of your target. You do need to reach that target in order to secure the pledge from Sport England, as well as anything that you've raised from your community. Now, once you've reached that target, you can start celebrating. You start shouting about the fact that you've done it, you're successful. What an amazing thing to have supported from your community. If you still have some time live on your campaign, If you want to, you can set something we call a stretch target. So that's an additional goal that you are setting in terms of an amount of money that would just make your project sing. So you've got what you need to make it happen, but could you do with a bit more money for maybe a marketing budget to really promote what you're doing? Or actually, you're revamping the changing rooms and you've done the basics, but there's kind of this wish list of items that aren't a necessity, but would really make it a great place for your community, for your beneficiaries. Those things could go into your stretch target. It's an additional goal for your supporters to work towards. It gives you something else to be communicating outwardly to your supporters. Thank you for your support. We've done it. These additional things would be really, really helpful too. So think about that when you're setting your target as well. What's the minimum you need to make this thing happen? And then is there an additional amount of money that would just be really helpful? That could be your stretch target. Just bear in mind and remember as well that with this particular fund, you have to reach 100% of the target that you set. So your initial target in order to secure the Sport England money. And that might help you with a bit of the maths in terms of what your target needs to be or should be. Okay, this is something that comes up a lot. It's a question that people often ask. They get the principle of crowdfunding, but they're just a bit unsure on how to connect with members of the community. And it can feel quite overwhelming. If you think about your community at large, it's a lot of people potentially. How are you going to go out to everybody and rally those donations? The best thing to do is to break it into bite-sized pieces, very much like your target, rather than thinking, oh, we need to go out there and we need to raise £20,000 and it feels a lot of money. Break it down. How much do you need to raise day by day, week by week? That becomes your message outwards to your supporters. And same with your network as a whole. Break it into different areas. Think about your community as little groups of people. So your friends and your family. You might have partners. So when we talk about partners, could be suppliers, could be venues, could be organizations that you work with. Social media is great. If you've not already got social media platforms attached to your organization, start building them before the crowdfunder, get some engagement so that it's actually landing with an audience when you post in there. Think about your existing members. That could be club members. That could be those beneficiaries that you already work with. Also, like academic institutions, so schools, colleges, universities that are within your community, they can be really helpful with collaborative fundraising, maybe hosting some events for you and some fundraising activities. Other sports clubs and organisations within your community, reach out. You've all got a similar goal in mind. You want to get your communities active. What can they do? How can you work collaboratively? Because you're benefiting the community as a whole, aren't you? So let's try and keep this collaborative where everybody gets to play a part. And press and blogs. So it could be radio, it could be newspapers, it could be somebody within your community that's got a really influential blog that they put out there. Think about how to communicate with each of those groups. For some, it might be picking up the phone. For others, it might be in newsletters. For press, it could be creating a press release and spoon feeding them all of the information that they need. It could be going into schools and organizations and offering some of your time to do maybe a free taster session and building some engagement that way. Try not to just think, if I send an email to everybody on this list, I'm going to get some results. You might get a little bit of engagement, but it's not going to yield the best results. You need to make all of your communication engaging to the audience that you're targeting and think about what is it that resonates with them about the project that we're doing. Will they benefit? Could they make use of some of the rewards that we have? If they're members of the business community, can we talk about promoting them as somebody that supported us? Would that be the hook to get them to actually offer a reward or a donation? So think creatively about how best to communicate your message and make it relevant to each of these groups. I've touched upon the different funds that we have on Crowdfunder, and we'll make sure that you've got a link to our extra funding page, which covers all of our current live funds. There are lots of different organisations on there. It's worth taking a look at those in your area and our national funds to see who might be able to back you with some match funding when you start your crowdfunding campaign, and do apply for all of those that you're eligible for as well. Okay. I really want to bring on our project owner because I'm so excited to hear about their journey. I just want to cover this because this is something which people sometimes neglect, whereas actually it can be a really great way to showcase what you're about. So when you're putting your page together, try as much as you can to make it as engaging as possible. And also make sure, as I mentioned at the beginning of the session, that you're almost treating it as a conversation between old friends. On one hand, it might be somebody that you've seen yesterday who's part of the organisation with you and knows everything about it and is really excited to see the project happen. And you don't need to necessarily explain loads. You just need to really kind of hammer home the benefits of the project. On the other hand, if you're speaking to somebody that you've not seen in a year or so, they might not really know much about the organisation that you're involved in. So make sure you're also including some background history on the club or the organisation, the community impact that you have. Try and cover all bases and try and think about those narratives that resonate with the different groups of your community as well. Wherever possible, flood that campaign page with images. We all know the old saying about, a picture telling 1,000 words. People connect really well with visuals, especially if they involve people. There is something about that kind of human interest point that really helps to engage an audience. And if you have capacity to, add a little video on there as well. It doesn't have to be anything flashy. It doesn't have to be over scripted or highly edited. It just needs to be yourself or a group of people from the organisation saying, this is us, this is what we do, this is why we need to raise the money and why it's important, and this is how you can help us. And that would be share our page, donate to our page, offer a reward if you can do. About a minute to a minute and a half. It doesn't have to be particularly long either. It's just a really great way to get your message across quickly, and it then can be shared into all sorts of areas of your promotion as well. So if you do have capacity, please do consider popping a video on there too. We've talked about the importance of rewards, and this is something which came from our last fund with Sport England, which was the Active Together Fund. What we noticed and what Sport England managed to kind of bring together for us was some great statistics about the rewards and how they impacted the kind of trends of donations. So you can see a couple of selections of the different types of rewards on the right hand of the slide here. And there's all sorts of things from discounted membership, as I've mentioned. Some people get merchandise designed and created, such as we've got a tote bag here from the club. And I know that they wouldn't do that normally. They actually put some money behind creating these things. But then there's also things like naming a boat. We've got website sponsors. We've got different experiences as well within local businesses, and also some services like self-assessment tax return, which we don't all need to think about. It's one of those things that always catches the self-employed community unaware, and they think, oh no, it's that time of year again, I've got to do my self-assessment. And actually, if somebody thinks, well, I'm going to save a bit of money claiming it on this reward, and actually that bookkeeper can do it for me, that's a win-win. Wonderful. They've spent their money in a really great way that's going to benefit the community. They're getting a service that they need. And actually that person, that bookkeeper or that accountant, is going to get a brilliant shout out for doing something lovely and supporting a local organisation. So it doesn't have to be kind of luxurious items. It doesn't have to all be experiences. Think about some of the necessities as well that people just need to be purchasing throughout their year. Okay, so what Sport England discovered was projects that had no rewards up to kind of 5 rewards on average saw around 106 supporters, and the average crowd pledge was £52.85 on those projects. Now, projects that had more than 21 rewards, which I know seems a lot, but you can add rewards as the campaign goes along. So you could have a few, and then as the campaign is live, you can keep sourcing them, you could add more, and that's a great way to re-engage your supporters too. Rather than please donate, it can be come and have a look at the new rewards that we've had. You know, the restaurant down the road has just given us a private hire for 30 people. Why not book your next birthday party there? Use it as a marketing tool as well. So projects that had more than 21 rewards on average had 153 supporters, and that crowd pledge leapt up to £92.12. So a massive increase in the amount of money that people were giving on average. So definitely consider it as a really useful way to boost the amount of money that people are going to give to your campaign. And the other thing that you can be doing is having people actually give on your behalf so they can actually fundraise for you. So this will make sure I share a link to this page in the follow-up email, but it's a great way to engage your community at large. Can you set a fundraising challenge? They'll be prompted to set up their own mini pages, and all of the money that they raise will go straight into your campaign as well. It's a really straightforward way to actually have people take a bit of ownership for getting you to where you need to be with your target. Okay, that is enough from me. I've filled you with lots of information, but somebody who's been there recently and done this is Adam from the Lincolnshire Bombers American Football Club. Thank you so much, Adam, for waiting in the wings. If you'd like to join me on screen and we can talk a bit about your project. So would you mind telling us about the need for the money and what it was that you were raising money for, and just that process of applying as well?
Yeah, of course. Hi, everybody. So, as it says, I run the Lincolnshire Bombers American Football Club. It's an adult team and under 16s team involved at the minute. And it's an expensive sport. It needs obviously helmets and pads. Helmets are about £350 each per helmet, and have a 10-year life. Our aim as a club is to make sure that anybody who's new into the team is given a helmet from the club, so they don't have to pay that money out, which has proven put people off the sport in the past. About 6 months ago, we realised, maybe 10, 12 months ago, something like that, we realised that a lot of our helmets were due to expire because they only have a 10-year safe life before they're not able to be used anymore. And as you can imagine, that's a lot of money. So we needed to purchase 33. It was actually 35 to start with, and that just reduced down to 33. So there's a huge amount of money we needed to get in, and that's where we approached Sport England. We'd gone through other platforms in the past similar to crowdfunding. I won't list them. People can find them on Google. There's many more, and they hadn't been very successful. Hence why we'd gone down the grant route with Sport England. We hadn't really thought about crowdfunder at this point. Didn't really want to go down that route again. But it came as a prerequisite for the Sport England Fund. I think a few people have mentioned in their introductions they're kind of going down that route as a matched fund. The biggest benefit we found going through this is it's reiterated the need for constant interaction. I think as you've been talking, Zoe, about updating your project as it goes, keeping it live, keeping it interested for people. I think that's where we'd failed in the past with other platforms. We'd started them and just left them and expected that people would just see them through our natural social media and natural network. That's probably the biggest benefit I think we've taken from the crowdfunding is it has to be alive. This has to be a live process you're always thinking about and you're always interacting with and promoting to the community why it benefits your organisation, but also how it benefits the community. I didn't find the application hard, to be honest. The whole process I thought was quite simple. Once we understood the requirements of Sport England and what they needed from us, I thought it was quite easy. The support, the project agents that Becky mentioned that gets allocated to you. In our instance, it was Becky. So obviously, I'm not going to say anything horrible, but there wasn't anything to say. Sport England were excellent. The advice they gave us, the support they provided, I think really helped make our project what it was. That ranged from finding similar projects and sending us links to either similar active projects or completed projects so we could take, pinch and steal bits of ideas from their project, or just general advice. Some of the things you've put in the slides here, saying add rewards, it can benefit in you this way, do this, we think this benefits. Yeah, the support was excellent from them. It might seem daunting. It's a lot of information they want in the initial application, and it is a lot of information to set up the crowdfunding project. But I think if you take the time and put the time into it properly, it's beneficial massively.
I think you've hit the nail on the head there, Adam. Thank you. Because I think for a lot of people on the call, they might be looking at this process and thinking, oh my goodness, this is quite overwhelming. And don't get me wrong, it can take a lot of time and effort, can't it? And it is one of those that the more you put into the planning of it, the easier the being live becomes, because you can be reactive and think, okay, we know we've got these rewards to add, or we've already got these photos that we can put out onto social media. And that would be my advice, is to definitely use the resources that we've got. And you were brilliant, weren't you, with Becky? You had lots of kind of, back and forth and support from Sport England. And Becky mentioned before we came, live on the call, that you were one of the first kind of projects that came through the new fund, so the movement fund, and actually really did embrace this process where you'd applied to Sport England for a grant. So actually then being told, oh, you need to crowdfund would have been quite overwhelming. You've actually managed to do it incredibly well. So you should be really proud of the engagement that you've had and the amount of money that you've raised, and hence why we've invited you here today, because we think it's a brilliant example of crowdfunding. And the fact that you've come through that route, it could have been really daunting for you. And no doubt it probably was if you tried it in the past and it hadn't quite worked out. But you should be really proud of what you've achieved with your campaign. Definitely. And that just goes, to say as well with everyone on the call, make sure you are engaging with Sport England and with ourselves, because it's our aim to get you successful projects and to get the money out the door, and you doing what you need to do. I think it would be a great time to bring Becky back onto the call if possible, and we can talk through a little bit about, we've had quite a lot of questions coming through. What I might do ever so quickly, guys, is just run through just the support slides, and then we'll jump straight into a Q&A, because I want to make sure we can get as many questions answered as possible. And I'm sure there'll be some for you, Adam, as well. So just on that support, we've got obviously contact with Sport England. So do make sure you reach out to them and you're asking them any questions, getting some feedback. We've got webinars such as this that happen every month, where we will have Sport England and a project owner. So you can come along and hear from them as well. We've got some brilliant resources on the platform, like our knowledge hub, some email advice when you sign up. We've got a wonderful customer support team and a help centre. We've got drop-ins. You can come and speak to a member of the team. Our aim is to get the money to you to deliver the projects. We want to make it as easy as possible for you, and we're here to support you every step of the way. On that, let's see if we've had some questions coming through, which might benefit all of you in the room. Lucy, did you want to join us as well? Because you've been squirreling away in the chat box. Have you had some questions come through?
Yes, there was a couple that I've seen that I'd just like to touch on. Early on, there was a question regarding fees and tips, and there are fees there. However, if you're a not-for-profit organisation, this is purely for the transaction fees. So it's not fees that are going to crowdfunder. These are the transaction fees when somebody is making a pledge to your campaign. So that is quite different. So it's a low amount, and it is something which comes off the amount that you receive at the end of your campaign. So I've popped a link into the chat, so hopefully that will explain it a little bit further. But if you are set up as a not-for-profit, so that could be a charity, a CASC, a CIC, a voluntary sports club, you would come into that no platform fees. Okay. Someone else asked about gift aid. If you are a CASC or a charity, absolutely, you can gift aid. If people are just making a pledge or a donation on your page, get them to tick gift aid, no problem. Where you've got rewards, you just have to be mindful of eligibility of gift aid if someone's receiving something in kind. However, what is really handy is when you're in the dashboard of your crowdfunder project, you can download that list. So anyone who has ticked, I want to offer gift aid, it gives you a ready-made downloadable list that you can then submit to HMRC, which is really, really handy. I know I've used similar things in the past, which is really, really useful. Couple of other things I've seen. Oh, go for it, Adam.
Sorry. Someone's just put some comments about the tips, and I wanted to talk about that quickly, if that's okay, because you were just mentioning it there.
Oh, yes.
They've said that it put off some of their potential supporters. We had that as well, where some of our supporters thought that the tips were going to us and we were kind of hiding it from them. And it was money. I don't think they potentially didn't understand and hadn't read. Personally, once I read through the website and I saw it, what we did, you might not like this, but what we did, we produced a little brochure, cheat sheet kind of thing, just to explain to our supporters, if they didn't want to tip, this is how to remove the tip. It's not mandated. I don't like that thing saying it's mandated. I don't think it is. And because we had a few of our supporters raise this question back up, saying more money had left their bank than they thought they were tipping or they were pledging. But the instructions are on there to request the tips back, and Crowdfunder were excellent with us. They took us through this, and it helped kind of put some of the minds at ease of our supporters who thought they were being not conned, but being misled. So that is something you can do as the project owners is reach out to people about that. I know it takes away from the support towards Crowdfunder, but some people don't want to do it. But it isn't mandatory, and there is the ability to help people not have that on there.
There is definitely a little button that sort of says you can use the sliding scale, but also if you want to put a bespoke one in and put it as 0, you can do. It is there. It's exactly the same if you were on another platform like Just Giving, for example. I've donated to somebody else's. It's actually my daughter's doing some colour run thing at school in a few days' time, and I donated to that, and it was exactly the same situation. You could either use the sliding scale or you can put in the 0. So it is there, but people have to read those instructions to make sure it's clear.
And from our side, it is very much an ever-evolving thing, trying to test, what messaging lands best, trying to communicate that with people donating. So any feedback is always welcome. As Lucy mentioned, it's very similar in kind of the digital fundraising world these days, but obviously we want to communicate that as best we can so that people understand, no, it's not mandatory. This is what it goes towards. If you want to, you can do. What I love is Lucy works for Support England, but she's been so prevalent in supporting projects through Crowdfunder that you may well think she works for Crowdfunder because she knows it all, but she's actually here for Support England. But I love it because, any questions about projects, Becky and Lucy are both really, really clued up on all of the Crowdfunder side of things as well. Did we have any other questions coming through, Luce?
I can see one at, are there any limitations on what funds can be used for? So this particular gentleman was asking about developing pitches or facilities. From our perspective, no, we won't fund your day-to-day running costs from a project perspective. However, facility improvements absolutely is something that we might invest in. What you've got to be able to demonstrate to us is how you are supporting getting more people active, if it's meeting any of those priority areas. So, for example, we have supported some changing room type projects where perhaps the setup is a bit outdated, and from a safeguarding perspective, or maybe from the women and girls side of things, just the showers and the changing are just not appropriate. So it's limiting what teams you can have on site at any one time and utilising the facilities. So if the club is then looking to extend, perhaps make specific women and girls, improve the shower facilities, that's the kind of thing we want to hear about. What's the challenges that has meant that you're having to make these facility improvements or developments? That's what we want to hear about. So what is it stopping you from doing? Is it limiting the people you can have on one site at any one time? Obviously, if you've got young people and you've got adults, you've got all coming on site at one time, you've got to be very careful. So tell us the challenges that you're having to deal with, which has led to you really needing to do this project.
I've just spotted a question actually, which I think is a good one to cover. A question here about having 2 different projects that need funds raising for them. Can they have two separate crowdfunders going at once, two projects kind of looking at two different audiences? And in terms of, let's just say for the movement fund, can an organisation apply multiple times for the movement fund? Could they apply for separate projects? And then I'll go into the kind of crowdfunding best practice for having two separate projects. So Becky or Lucy, would you mind answering on the movement fund side of things?
Yeah, so one organisation can apply for up to £15,000 in a 12-month period. So if you were intending to apply to Sport England as an extra funder, potentially you could for both if they're different projects, different audiences, but only up to 15,000. So what we couldn't do is offer 15,000 per project. We can only offer 15,000 per organisation. It might be that you apply to us and receive 5,000 in the first half of the year, and you come up with a different project and you want to apply for a further 10,000, which you can do, but we can't offer more than 15,000 in a 12-month period.
Thank you. And then in terms of the crowdfunder perspective, we would always recommend trying not to have two projects on the go at the same time, if you can help it. Mainly because, as Adam, I'm sure, will attest to this, that it does take a lot of energy. It does take a lot of capacity to be able to run a crowdfunding campaign effectively. And unless you've got a lot of people that you can kind of delegate to run those separate campaigns at the same time, you might not be able to put enough energy into them to have them be effective or successful. That it might also dilute your potential supporters and potential audiences. Although you might have two kind of demographics that you're trying to approach, there may well be a crossover there. And actually, they might just donate to one, whereas they don't then to the other one. So I would suggest either combining them as a bigger campaign. Alternatively, if you can stagger them and run one campaign and then give it a little bit of a breather, maybe a few months, 3 months or so, and then go again. What you're doing is you're creating a supporter base with that first campaign that you can go back to and build upon and actually kind of increase that network as well. So I wouldn't recommend doing it exactly at the same time, but it can be done consecutively, or you could absorb them as part of one kind of overall campaign. So you're raising money for these two things as part of this overall campaign. I hope that helps. Very, very quickly, just to clarify on the pledge versus the target. So somebody has been asking that they've had a conditional offer of £7,500. Does that mean that they also need to raise £7,500 for that match? Yes, we're getting lots of nods. So essentially, the minimum that you'd set your target for is £15,000, because that's what you'd need to raise overall. So 7.5 from Sport England, 7.5 from yourselves. If you needed more than that, your target could be larger, or you could set a stretch target, which would help you to raise a little bit more on top of that. But ultimately, you need to raise the additional. They're only giving you 50% maximum, so you need to raise the additional amount of money. Okay, do we have time for one more question? Have you had any coming through? I can see a few firing into the chat box at the moment, Lucy. We might go a minute or two over, but we did start.
Yeah, I can see one
late.
about the potential for offline fundraising.
Okay.
So I think in an ideal world, we want to see the pledges come through the page. Then it's all very clear as to whether they're a unique supporter and things like that. If people do want to pay you cash, you would need to then provide us just with the evidence of who that's come from. So in the same way you would from any, I guess, event that you raised, you might have a little spreadsheet when you're doing the accounts at the end of the session that you've run. Or the event that you've run as to who's paid what and how much it was for. So we can offer that to be able to look at some of those to make sure they're all unique supporters and things like that then attribute to your overall campaign, because you do need to reach a minimum of 25 supporters as part of that. Okay. I can also see one about Sport Scotland. Unfortunately, at the moment, I don't think Sport Scotland are doing any kind of crowdfunding. So although they have got funding, they're not doing the options through crowdfunding at the moment as an extra funder in the same way that I know Wales and Northern Ireland have done in the past as well.
Thank you. Okay, what we will do is anything that we haven't been able to cover, we've had some really specific questions. So what I think would be a good idea is for those specific questions about your particular project, I'll make sure that I just bring up the contact details for you now to connect with Sport England and ourselves. We do have a couple of drop-in sessions actually running. There's one this evening, there's one next Tuesday evening as well. So in that follow-up, I'll make sure I send the links to those if you've got any specific questions you want to ask us. Other than that, if there's something that we can cover off in the follow-up email, I will make sure that we do that so you've got everything that you need to be able to take this to the next step. I don't want to keep you much longer because I'm sure that you're all inside when you should be outside enjoying the sunshine on your lunch break. So thank you so much for joining us for today's session. And thank you to Lucy and Becky and Adam for joining me as well. All that remains to say is good luck with your fundraising, and we are all here to support you. So we look forward to connecting with you and helping you to raise the money that you need. Thank you very much, everybody.